Okay, so the voice recorder is on, but now let me see if I can get the freaking screen to record. No, I can't. Hold up. I'll just change this around. Let me. Okay, now we have the screen recorder. Screen recording. Yay. Alright, so welcome everyone. Back I is Mega Zero.
I am Late Night Steve, aka Sweet Daddy in the streets.
Now, we're going to finish up the last part of this playlist, and...
Excuse me. What you heard was my nuts.
Oh my goodness. So, unfortunately, like I said in the last part, due to my computer just screwing up, we unfortunately had the footage corrupted, so I had to re-record the last part on my own.
Just so y'all know, it is bright and early on this side of the earth, and that's why Omega has such low energy, but me being the early bird that I am, I've been up for quite some time.
It's not that I have low energy, it's just that my voice is scratchy. So, continue on with the list. We have Mileena. Like, if I'm going to be biased, I probably would put her in A, but due to the way that she's run into story mode in 9 and 10, she's probably gonna go in B. And even then, B is probably gonna be upper mid. If I was being biased, it would be an A. But if I look at her like objectively as a character, she probably. If I looked at
You said Mileena?
Mileena. Yeah. Fortunately, they changed her story around this time. Whereas in the old timeline, she was around the same age as Kitana after Shao Kahn conquered Edenia. Where he created a clone of her as like a sister, like just in case anything happens, she could take her out. Then she dies, they get survived by Shinnok, and so on and so forth. Because no one ever truly stays dead in Mortal Kombat.
That is a fact. That is a fact.
The only people who really stay dead now are people who are killed off in cutscenes.
Jarvis.
Moloch, Cobra are confirmed dead in the new timeline. They haven't been brought back yet.
Not yet. Wait till Mortal Kombat 12.
Bring back Moloch as a character.
You're like, who?
Moloch. Yeah, the only character no one likes. Yeah, because she doesn't really win. It doesn't explain how she gets Shinnok's amulet other than she paid Kano, but I don't think it's explained how Kano got it.
Mercenary.
He's a mercenary, sure, but when you have all of the Earth putting in traps in place to where they can't get it, and you have a literal god also putting in traps, and you basically have all of Earth working against you, make sure you can't get this thing.
Sometimes you gotta send a scumbag in.
But they don't really explain how he gets it.
No honor amongst thieves. You gotta send a straight scumbag.
Fair enough. What else? She doesn't win. She's also proves to be a really crappy leader. Because she pretty much follows Shao Kahn's example, except she's worse.
Most women are crappy leaders.
I didn't say that, you did.
That's real, because men are more cerebral. We're more intellectual than emotional. Until you start talking about money.
But Mileena, she was effectively to Shao Kahn, but worse in the fact that she was just way more cruel than Shao Kahn in a sense, which is kind of
emotional.
And she had multiple people betray her. The only person who was staying truly, they had 3 people who pretty much stayed loyal. Even then, one of them wasn't really loyal. Rain, Tanya, and Baraka. Baraka gets killed off. We don't know what happens to Rain and Tanya. So she ends up dying at the end of 10. Not even the end of 10, like around the midpoint. And it makes me wonder why Kotal Khan's not on this list, because he was a villain in 10. Even though he...
What was the black dude's name?
Yeah.
The what?
Geras.
What was his name?
Geras.
Yeah. What happened to him?
He... how'd he die, or...
He died?
Died.
How?
Well, effectively, even if you're... He's a fixed point in time, but the sea of blood where he was dropped in is bottomless. So he won't literally fall forever.
So what you saying? They have the whole stereotype that black people can't swim?
No, not that.
Okay.
If it's in passing, in one of the pre-fight dialogues, it said that he was eaten by like something and it crapped him out later. That's why he was able to escape the Sea of Blood.
So he was crapped out.
If
So
we-
he's
if we
Mr.
take-
Hanky.
That's if we take pre-fight dialogue as canon. But then again, you could just say everything's an alternate timeline, so you could say he's dead or he's a fixed point in time. But then again, in Aftermath, Shao Kahn literally bashed his head in so hard that he didn't regenerate for some reason, which doesn't make sense because he's able to come back from anything, and also being literally blown up into literal bloody chunks. And his blood,
Bloody chunk.
literal bloody chunks, because the blood like literally tried to form back. Because I think Cassie Cage blew him up with like two. She impaled him to a set of crates with a forklift. Threw 2 grenades, he blew up, and the bloody chunks like literally were trying to swim back and form into Geras. But we're getting way off the topic of Melina.
I'm letting you talk. I just asked what happened to the black dude.
And I gave you the answer. You're the one that asked the question. We're getting off topic.
You're the one who said he got boo-booed out. But the tier list.
Good theory. Yeah. I would put, if I was being biased, she would be an A. I keep saying this, but due to I had to like look at her like objectively as well, she kind of falls into B because she was an ineffective ruler. She led an infected rebellion, and she was being betrayed. The amulet that she had was trying to kill her, and she didn't know that until she used it. Unfortunately, I believe, because when mortals use Shinnok's amulet, it basically kills them slowly.
Right.
And she's only VOC in 11, so her story and presence doesn't really matter there. But it kind of does. Like, why didn't Kronika bring her back as the one of World Champions when they brought Scarlet, Aaron Black, who wasn't even in Mortal Kombat, like the 1, 2, and 3 era of the new timeline, but they artificially changed that.
Right.
But moving on, we have Drummond, the second part of the Moloch. And
What does it look like?
we unfortunately don't have his face,
Okay.
but if he had like a green mask because he's an Oni, and he basically was like all you saw his skin tissue.
Oh, yeah, I remember who you're talking about.
He had like an iron club. And
Yeah, he had like a club on his hand.
and he had flies around him.
Yeah, that's what I thought meat was at first. Now, like, oh, that ain't meat.
Okay.
Meat was pink.
No, meat was red. Like he was constantly dripping blood. It's like if you took
Yeah.
away all this muscle, well, not all the muscle, but like if
All
you
the
took-
fatty tissue.
If you took away if you took away all the skin at once and he's just constantly bleeding.
Yeah.
Whereas Draman is already dead because he's he's an Oni that works with Moloch. Now, if we're going to put him as an antagonist, he literally does not accomplish. Let me rephrase that. He accomplishes one thing to my knowledge in the old timeline. He, along with the help of Moloch, are able to send Scorpion into a Soulnado, which takes him to the Void. There, he meets the Elder Gods and he becomes their official champion, whereas Shujinko was tricked by Damashi to become the champion, even though he wasn't.
Right.
So he does accomplish one thing, and it pretty much leads them immediately to their downfall. Well, I say immediately, but it doesn't really do anything because Scorpion gets brought back. So he's ineffective as a villain, but here's the thing: no one's gonna be below Kronika in terms of being a villain. This is gonna be there because the rule of cool is a stupid writing technique that needs to exist. Now, so yeah, he's just going to be. There's not much to say about Drummond. He fights Taven, and then he gets his face kicked in.
But what about his fighting style?
His fighting style, I don't even remember. I believe it's Hungar. No. Yeah, it's Hungar in Armageddon. The only reason I don't remember what it's from, because Mortal Kombat, they only had the videos. The only ones I kind of know are the ones I like: Sub-Zero, Johnny Cage, it's Scorpion, and Liu Kang. Basically a few of the characters, but pretty much everyone from across the series shares a few fighting styles.
Right.
Like I believe Scorpion and Kai both know Muay Fa. I believe that's probably called, but I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But Drummond doesn't really accomplish anything across the series except for that one thing I said, and even then really didn't have any consequence. It was supposed to kill Scorpion. It didn't. In fact, it probably made him stronger and made him more mad later.
Yeah.
Because Scorpion in the old timeline can never be anything but mad.
Yeah,
Well,
he's always on fire.
I'm joking, obviously, but
Tell him why you mad.
next we have Baraka.
Yes, my guy.
Now, if
That's
I
me.
was to cater to your sensibilities, you would probably put him in S, probably A, one of the two.
Top shelf.
Top shelf, or
Yes.
at least like right there.
Yes. Me
But-
and Baraka are the same. We kill people. That's what we do. We kill
No.
people. We not clean about it. We don't have no decorum about doing it. Nope. You just get it. Pull out the blades. Shing.
Alright, now, if I'm being objective here, he would probably be alongside everyone else in the. Because from what we see, he never wins.
Y'all hate me. Y'all hate me.
Like, I like his design. Like, the thing is, like, the problem I have is that he's supposed to be the strongest Tarkatan.
Yes.
Like, the strongest. He even says, I am Baraka, I am the leader of the Tarkata. And since the Tarkata are technically demon people of our world, well, they're demons fused with human DNA and all that.
Yes, that's what we do.
Which is interesting, don't get me wrong, but again, he never wins. Like in the old timeline,
Those are cutscenes. We kill people.
not even in cutscenes, like he has never won a fight against anyone. Like he lost against Johnny Cage, which you could probably say is the worst thing because Johnny Cage is one of the weaker people outside of fighting the godlike beings in the game, because if he fights godlike beings in the new timeline, he has like super ultra mega power.
You know, people always hate. I know why they hate me.
Look, if it makes you feel better, I could probably put him in upper C above Quan Chi.
Upper C.
No.
You were just about to give Mylena
I
a
said,
B.
I know, I said if I was being biased, I would put her in S or A. But I said if I'm being objective, she's going to be in like B or C.
Mm-hmm.
Baraka does not win but any fight, but he does get some character development. Only barely in like 11 in Deception, where he respects strength because in Deception, when Shujinko is captured after bringing help to help a city in our world called Lei Chen,
Mm-hmm.
all of Baraka's horde says do not resist because they take him to go meet Baraka. He gets mad and he said, I shall allow my horde to rip you to pieces. And Shujinko calls him out basically. Yeah, let a group do what you can't do yourself. So he calls him out and then Shujinko kicks his face in.
You sound like a hater.
Here's the thing, I don't like a whole lot of these characters because they don't really do their job effectively. I do like some of them because design-wise, or what they do as humans or when they're good. Whereas with the new timeline, the way writing style works,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of changes around.
I just want to let everybody know this is his tier list because if it was my tier list, number one would be Chun-Li. Top, Chun-Li, Guile, and Blanca would all make the list. Okay? Of Mortal Kombat top tier list.
Oh my goodness, you have to go back to that.
Yes, I did.
But yeah, when I say a little bit of character development in 11, he thinks about the Tarkatan people as a whole, like for like once in like ever since he was alive.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Kitana offers him a better deal to rule alongside her and a council for Outworld. He's like, no one has ever made the Tarkatan such an honor.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like, alright, he gets a little bit of character development, but his ending pretty much put him back as savage, nomadic people.
Right.
So the
Kill
story says one thing, his ending says another. Probably because most people would say, well, they don't play a story, so we're just gonna make a different ending completely. Then again, they also do that for a bunch of other characters. Now, if we're going to move on to the next person, being Kano,
Another one. Top flight.
even in the old timeline and new timeline, he pretty much exists just to be Sonya's rival.
He's a heel.
He's a heel, sure, but in story mode, he doesn't really accomplish anything. Because like he sends his gang to gang up on Johnny, and then younger Johnny in the new Mortal Kombat timeline, and younger Johnny does not take things as seriously, and thus he kind of always gets cornered, beaten up, taken down.
Somebody else,
So it looks like.
Ooh. Yeah.
If you want to say one of the worst things, he's one of the few people on screen canonically outside of the movies, I believe, to get nut punched by Johnny Cage.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to give him points, he also shrugs it off pretty quickly. So I can give him points for that. But he never really wins a fight. He loses to everyone. The only time he actually gets like a quote-unquote win is when he surprise attacks people. Like, I didn't count win for some people because in Mortal Kombat 9, he threw Johnny Cage off a bridge, but Johnny Cage caught a handle and immediately came back and beat him up.
Uh-huh.
So that is a really weird thing. He lost to Cyber Eye Sub-Zero where he was frozen. He lost to Kotal Khan. He's taken a lot of L's. I don't think he has one actual on-screen fight win that's not in a cutscene. Because again, he's a villain. But if we're going purely for aesthetic and that he's a classic character, then yeah, he would also be in Upper C, even though he's still a jobber. Put him above Quan Chi.
You put him above Quan Chi.
I don't like Quan Chi.
How?
I already said why I don't like Quan Chi as a character, because he already stole everyone's thunder, and that's the only reason why he's super effective, and the fact that he's also an idiot.
You sound like a hater, man. Why do you be so harsh against players that you don't like? You can just say I don't like them.
I do say I don't like them, and I
And
give
leave it
my
at that.
reasons why I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Are they harsh? Yeah, but they're also true.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright, next we have Shinnok. If we're going for the fact that he's only, lost, I believe, 3 times across the series, even though the last one was pretty harsh.
Right.
And the first time, even though it was off screen, all the gods pretty much teamed up against him to send him down to the Netherrealm, which is Mortal Kombat's equivalent of hell.
Uh-huh.
Then he lost in 4 when he came back. And then I'm pretty sure you can't play in here because it can pick up your rapid button presses. And yes, I know they're rapid and they're loud because you press them how quickly and how fast they are.
Or you could just turn it off and join in.
You probably won't. But, and then 4, again, in the new timeline with 10, he loses 2 more times, but then again, once just to retread of 4. And the other time, he gets defeated by Cassie Cage, and then Raiden comes in, takes him, and then bam, we have Dark Raiden, who decapitates him in 11.
Mm-hmm.
And by
Dark
the way,
Raiden.
Dark Raiden, who's on this list as well, and he's going to have his placement. So Shinnok, he doesn't have a lot of losses, but I will give him credit for being a schemer and the fact he overthrew Lucifer.
Jesus, what kind of game is it, man? I don't
Okay,
know.
okay. Hold up, let me explain. In Mortal Kombat Deception, you could talk around to random people, and I believe for one of them in Deception, when you talked around to someone in the Netherrealm, it said that they had a protector god in Netherrealm, who was Lucifer, and Shinnok overthrew him. So, then again, Shinnok...
So he's more powerful?
Well, if we're going to put him on a technical scale, Lucifer would be on around the same strength as Shao Kahn and Raiden. Even though Shao Kahn made himself artificially stronger. Yeah, they would be quote unquote around the same strength because they're from the same race of people. Whereas Shinnok is technically a step above their people, so that's why he was able to overthrow him. So if I was to put Raiden's effectiveness as a villain, even though he doesn't really accomplish all that much, he would be in upper B tier. But I wouldn't put him above characters like Melina, Cyrax, or... I put him above Dagon because Dagon actually fears him, despite the fact he should reasonably be around the same level. Because Blaze was pretty much stronger than everyone, and Taven and Dagon are at least around the same level, even though Taven won in the end.
Wasn't Taven just a regular person?
No. Taven was the son of a god, Argus in Denea, who was their protector god of that realm.
Okay. But I didn't remember him being that powerful.
Oh no, he was strong. It's just that they pretty much retconned him out of existence, with, or at least not retconned him. They only mention him sparingly. They changed the timeline. But moving on, we have Bihan, the first Sub-Zero. Now here's the thing: if I rate one, I'm going to have to rate him with his other half being Noob Saibot.
Okay.
If we're gonna go with the fact that Bihan was not a good person. He had like quote unquote some.
What's it
good,
look like?
He looks like he's the first Sub-Zero. So between 1 and 2, there's 2 different Sub-Zeros. The first one in 1 is Bihan. The second one from 2 onward is Kuai Liang, his younger brother. So Sub-Zero, we're talking about the first Sub-Zero because the second one is actually a good guy. But pre-Death Sub-Zero is an assassin, but I wouldn't really call him a villain in a sense, because, well, yeah, he takes out like the elemental gods to essentially almost help revive Shinnok and Quan Chi. He's just doing what he thinks is best for his clan, so it's like in the right moment.
Right. Seems like everybody. That's the whole thing of everybody on the game.
Yeah, well, it's the thing is like
except for people like Baraka and them. You know,
I have a lot.
Kano.
Like, there's a lot of genres, unfortunately, in Mortal Kombat due to the way that 9, 10, and 11 work as a story. So if I'm going to rate him as a villain, Bihan, I feel like he's gonna have to go in C because he's
D.
not. It's not because he's not a villain, because like I said, he is an assassin, and he does canonically kill Scorpion. You know, Scorpion in mythology is asking him to spare him. Well,
Like a punk.
like gameplays wise, yeah, you can spare him, and you get a cutscene with like funny, like, old man Shinnok who has like this really funny face. You can look it up if you want. It's done in live action. But if we were going to,
cool.
nothing like that. It is kind of
Similar to that.
It's funny, but if we're going to talk about Noob Saibot, unfortunately, he does do a lot of stuff in the old timeline where he's actually able to defeat Kuai Liang. He's almost able to overtake his temple later on in the future. And the only reason Kuai Liang survives is because Taven's there to help him. But in the new timeline, unfortunately, he's a jobber. Again, because of the
I
way...
feel like if you don't like him, you just give him the jobber status.
I like both Sub-Zero and Noob Saibot having them being cool designs. It's just that the problem with the story design is that they never really win. It's like, oh yeah, Saibot has this power where he can create a clone of his shadow. Or Noob, because the Shadow's clone is called Saibot, except he can create multiple of them in the new timeline.
Right.
Whereas in the old one, it's just stated, like his name's just Noob Saibot, he has like some shadow related powers.
Right.
So realistically, and they're bulletproof by the way, in one cutscene, but they're not in another for some characters. So that's kind of inconsistent there. He does something like he helps Quan Chi with the Soulnado, but then again he gets kicked into the Soulnado, then blows it up.
Yeah.
So he like quote unquote dies but comes back.
Which is insane.
He teams up with Smoke, reprograms him, and essentially makes him like his tag team partner in Deception, and they're like the sub boss of Deception. And they're really difficult and fun to use. So, well, yeah, he has a fun gameplay style, and he does things on his own, and he's tried a character who was, quote-unquote, on the right side, but fell to darkness, and willingly chooses to stay there in the new timeline. Does give him a bit of character depth, like, maybe he was, like, quote-unquote, always evil, or he had, like, a darkness to his heart.
Right.
Which is like, oh, that's kind of cool. So maybe I would actually put him in like Upper C along, because Noob Saibot and Bihan are essentially the same person. It's just like all the darker aspects of Sub-Zero are brought to the forefront with Noob Saibot. So I feel like I have to put him in the same tier, even though he does jump out to a lot of people. Scorpion. Now.
That's what we're on to now.
We're on to Scorpion. In the old timeline and the new timeline, he starts off as a villain, even though he does do some good things. Like he does kill Bihan, but that's because he was led to believe that Bi-Han killed his family and friend. And it turns out he wasn't. He's like, as penance, I will protect his like younger brother, Kuai Liang. You know, Kuai Liang wants to kill him. Then again, he's tricked by Quan Chi. Then he's like, Kuai Liang, he's the one responsible. And then when he figures out, he goes out and tries to like torture Quan Chi for tricking him and like it. So by the time like Deadly Alliance rolls around, I would say Scorpion's more chaotic and neutral than evil. And when I say chaotic and neutral, I mean he pretty much goes after anyone who's wronged him in a way.
Revenge tour.
He's revenge driven. So, and in the new timeline, he actually becomes a better person because even though he follows Quan Chi, and Raiden calls him out on this, like, you sit at your master's heel, like beck and call and all that. Even though he had a chance for redemption, he let his rage consume him, and he actually regrets that when he's human, because he's able to reflect upon it.
Right.
So, and the only reason he's on the villain side in Armageddon is so that he can fight Sub-Zero, basically kill everyone, because he said the Elder Gods screwed him over. Because like he says, revive my family and clan, and the Elder Gods are, okay, it's like the monkey's paw. Because he wasn't specific enough. They say, oh, you want to revive your family and clan? Okay. They're all he says they're not dead, they're the undead.
Okay.
So they're essentially all zombies or wraiths or specters like he is. And he doesn't want that. He wanted to be like alive.
I'm still confused because like I'm listening to you describe this list, and it's like you don't have a particular type. So I'm like anticipating
a particular type of villain that I like.
Right, because
I already have 3.
What I'm saying is like it's making me personally the type of person I am. I'm anticipating to see who's gonna be at the top of this list.
Okay.
Because everybody that I like basically work in the kitchen. or janitors on your list.
If I was gonna put Scorpion somewhere on the list, he'd probably be lower B or even upper C. Because he's revenge driven, but I wouldn't say that makes him like he's similar in the veins with Dark Reign.
It's almost like how do you be a villain or be revenge driven? It's like that's almost.
It's like he's a villain in a sense because sometimes he ruins the hero's plans, but he also ruins the villain's plans because he deliberately tries to kill Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, or more specifically Quan Chi. But then again, in Armageddon, he's also trying to basically screw everyone over.
Right.
So like he's like. He wants to be a villain, but then again, he wants to revenge against the Elder Gods. Like, you screwed me over, I want revenge. So
yes, like
that's
me, I kill people.
That's why I say he's probably upper, or not upper, like lower B tier, or even like upper C tier. Because as a villain, he's always been like hyper focused, and even then, he's mainly an antagonistic force rather than being primarily a villain. Now, Dark Raiden, we unfortunately don't get much of him because we have the very end of Deception technically. Armageddon, and he exists for like a chapter in, like 2 chapters in Mortal Kombat 11, and at the end of 10 as a little side reveal.
Right.
So as an antagonist, he's not even really an antagonist in the new timeline. He's just hyper focused on defending Earthrealm.
Right.
Granted, that also means like he wants to go to every realm challenging Mortal Kombat. It's like, you stayed out of Earthrealm. He's also willing to destroy anyone to get to his way.
Well,
because in the old timeline, even though Shujinko helped defeat Onaga, Raiden was like, "You caused this." And I was like, "Oh, but I was tricked." And Shujinko was legitimately tricked for like 60 years.
That was like a deception.
Yeah, all the way to deception. He was like a teenager, a young, impressionable kid. So
that he went to jail.
He went to jail for like 20-something years. He actually did in Canada. But Dark Raiden was like, I don't care if you were tricked or anything. It's your fault that you put the realms at risk in Dark Raiden. So he tries to kill him. And then in Armageddon, he tries to stop Kaden from completing his quest because he stupidly believes that Shao Kahn will leave Earthrealm alone if he stops Kaden. Right. So he's so hyper focused on his goal that makes him an antagonistic force.
Right.
So if we're going off that, he would be like upper D, because he's not a villain. He's an antagonistic force. Because he's just hyper focused on his one goal of defending Earthrealm, which makes him to make stupid and irrational decisions.
Okay.
Now, so that's why I rank Dark. I like Dark Raiden and I like Raiden because Raiden's primarily a hero.
No, I don't.
It's because Dark Raiden is not really shown all that much, and it's only used sparingly in some cases that he's ranked as just an antagonist and not a villain. Collector. We're going to move on to Collector before we move on to what I believe are S tiers. Collector.
Who is Collector?
He is a character shown in 11 who is from a race of people who Shao Kahn gives one job, and that's their game.
Kill people?
Collector is he's the tax collector.
Who the hell is that?
That's nerds.
Ray Lonnie.
Hey, nerd.
Ray Lonnie. Alright. Here.
If we're going off Collector's line, it's her phone. If we're going off Collector as a character, he just serves Shao Kahn. That's it.
And
He doesn't
ain't that
even-
a jobber?
He's a pure jobber. He's going in D
Okay.
tier. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He goes in D tier because he has really no personality other than I want to serve Shao Kahn and I like my job. He wants, well, let me rephrase it. He wants to rise above his station, but that's like one quote, along with some pre-fight dialogue. But he really doesn't do anything. He kills some nameless jobbers and he gets his face and kicked in by every other person in the game. He doesn't show up for the final battle.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't really accomplish anything at the very end of the day, other than informing Shao Kahn that Melina died in the future.
Okay.
So yeah,
And so now we're about to get into your elite tier.
delete it. I'm gonna put them on A real quick because my screen isn't big enough to.
Well,
hold
I'll tell
them.
you like this. Before you do that, don't do it just yet. We're going to save that one for the next show. Because I feel like this group, because of what I asked, deserves its time frame. It doesn't need it to be rushed into to be encapsulated into the end of the show because of time constraints. I think it definitely needs its own own show.
Due to the fact that I moved them already by the time you said this, I can't put them back in their little thing.
Yeah, but
people already know when they see them.
Yeah, but they also don't know what your commentary is going to be on it. So yeah, all right. So they saw it.
Like they saw, but like I'm gonna commentate over it later.
Mm-hmm.
But since the video being as long as it is takes up like a crap ton of space on my computer, it's gonna be a while before I make that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to also let people know today's show was brought to you by Acme Billy Clubs. You may not like the sound of it, but it has a hell of a beat.
Anyways, I am Omega Zero.
And I am Late Night CJ, aka Sweet Daddy in the streets.
And we'll catch you guys later.
Content is king, son.